Sam, good morning to you. And it's 8:30 at night over here. That's quite okay. I mean, I always tell my American guests that enjoy your breakfast and I'll enjoy my dinner later. So.
Yeah. Well, I know better than to eat before I talk. So otherwise we might have a lot of gastrointestinal type issues. So I'll enjoy lunch later. So it's a little after 10 here in sunny North Carolina, Pinehurst. So.
Good. I brought you sunshine. And thank you very much, Sam, for coming on this show, which is called Dr. M's Vodcast. I'll just have a small introduction. I hate introducing you to you, the guest to guest, but then standard work. So let me introduce you to you so that
I might actually learn something. So,
oh, let me try. Yeah, so okay, there we go. Sam McPherson is Samuel, right?
Yeah, you can call me Sam.
Sam, great. And I would rather call you Mr. Ubaya, that you're famous for. So, well, you're on series one of Dr. M's podcast. Dr. M was thanks to Mark Deluzio, who said Dr. Mohan Parmeshwaran is a too big, longer name to pronounce, so I'll call it Dr. M. So we stuck to Dr. M, and now it has become a brand called Dr. M. But nobody ever asked me what I did my doctorate on, so I keep quiet. So, so this has started more because of the pandemic and my curiosity to understand lean. And as I said, my sensei is Masaki Mai. I love him a lot, and he's not with us, but then all what he taught is what I follow. So Sam, we started about 2 years ago, and today you're on the episode 54. And there's a series one. Why I called it series one is there were a lot of noise made on LinkedIn, and it still goes on, that lean has failed and all sort of things. And I don't believe that lean has got a start line or an end line. All what I said is I'm on the western side of India, a place called Bombay, and my mission is to connect continuous improvement profession across the world. It's called Dr. M's Vodcast. And I stopped sharing, and let's talk about an excellent topic, the myth of leader standard work. So, as I said, I have issues. I have a problem with operational definitions. So, where does leadership start and where does leadership end?
We're going to discuss today is that whole process is a part of leadership and influence. It's a part of management systems, and the routines that go along with that change. So when you think of leadership routines, is some level of predictability where people can know where to go to for help, and know when to expect someone to come by and check on them. And then the role of leaders at different levels. What has happened is, because of the complexity of how Toyota runs its operations, and that happens because so many people are involved in that, is that what people call tier 0 boards, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, they're all kind of a cookie cutter of each other. Whereas in reality at Toyota, they're really not. They're a visualized form of their management duties. So the point back in about 2008 or so was to take what were the management duties and routines at every level, starting at the team member level to the team leader level, mostly in the production realm. So I'm going to stay in that realm. But the production supervisor level, which we call a group leader, assistant manager level, the manager level, up to vice president, president, and so forth, is to say, what should we be looking at to see if we're moving forward. We set targets that end up being KPIs, and then the team, that team comes up with sub KPIs, leading indicators and influencers that will have an effect on the lagging indicators that tell us whether we're getting to our goal or not. So the complexity kind of gets into, who develops the sub KPIs. The team does. The sub KPIs are kind of issued as, here's where we think you need to be, and the team then builds consensus around what do we want to monitor, and what influences our lagging indicators. So a big part of Toyota's leadership and management model is collaboration and consensus building. And I think it's stronger inside of Toyota than it is in other organizations, because that collaboration, communication, and consensus building is necessary to be able to understand the unintended consequences that might have an impact on processes, people's, and performance. So by getting the people who are the stakeholders of any particular improvement to show whether they buy into it or not is a function of leadership. It is the leadership that goes out and then says, we need to make this change for the better. Are there any unintended consequences I am not seeing here? What will it take for you and your team to make this happen? Is there something I'm not aware of? Do you support this? Is there anything I need to clarify on why we need to go there? And so the leader needs to go out and influence that change by making sure people thoroughly understand through every, communicate, collaborate, consensus. And that can be done through A3s. It can be done through video teleconferences, all hands type communications. One of the things that Will James actually put into place was something called a group leader roundtable, where he would take departmental group leaders or supervisors, bring them in, and they'd have a dialogue. Here's where we're going. Here's why we need to go there. What are the unintended consequences? What do you need from me to help support getting us there? What do I need to do to support you and your team to help you to get this vision going with you and your team? So he'd have direct dialogue with the floor leadership, production leadership, to see, as we go through this change, what are the problems you guys see, and what do you need from me to help communicate and get buy-in from your team? So, and this is the guy that's running a 12,000 person organization, but the organization architecture actually allows for that. So, so getting group leaders in with the president of the company to have a one-on-one dialogue on, here's where we're going, here's why you guys said you wanted to go here, here's what we need to do to get there. What are the things that are issues that we need to work on to help you be able to achieve this vision? It's very direct leadership, but the policy and the targets, were set by him, and they were aspirational. So, from our perspective, go out and lead. It's more important that the president of the company go out and look for change or go and communicate than to go by and look at boards. Whereas it's more the role of the vice president of manufacturing, HR, or the department managers to manage those KPI boards, or something we call 5 mission boards: safety, quality, productivity, cost, and human resource development. It changes a little bit by the level. It's not cookie cutter. For me, and external lead time is a quality measurement, because it's whether we satisfy that or not, is an influence on the requirement set by a customer. So anything to do with, lead time, on time in full and correct, that if it's external, that is part of an external expectation, and it's a quality measurement. Internal lead time reduction is a productivity thing. So from the time we decide to produce something to the time that it's loaded on a truck ready to go, that's internal lead time. That's a productivity measurement. So we need to separate those out in order to capture them more effectively. Operational availability equipment is a productivity number that's at the gimbal level. But this gets into another session that could probably go on for hours on how, that whole thing cascades out. The thing that I think that Mr. Ono said many years ago is that TPS is like baseball. And the Japanese generally didn't do much that was team oriented. It was more individual pursuit of perfection, right? More Zen Buddhism. So it wasn't until baseball came along that there was an understanding of winning together and working as a team. And so the way that Mr. Ono looked at that is he liked the fact that the managers on the baseball team actually wore the same uniform as the players on the field, and that you could have a third base coach on the field with the third baseman, and that every person on the baseball field was responsible for their area of the field and to monitor the things that were necessary for them to play their part of the field. So I think that's more like Toyota than, a rowboat or what have you. It's like everyone has a part of the field, and if they manage their duties in their area, then they need to do whatever they do in their area. And if everyone's doing their part, everyone wins together, right? So when it comes to what we would call leader standard work, it would be back in 2008, visualizing what your management system is based on your role. You're the third base coach. What should you be managing? How should you be working with your third base, your third baseman on the field? And so, as you know, we have team members, we have team leaders, production team leaders, we have group leaders, which are our version of a production manager and a supervisor, and they have their own group or team, and then they work within a department. It's more of a matrix organization with traditional hierarchies, and then the department manager has an assistant department manager and a department manager, and then we have a vice president of the different areas, and then there's the president. The thing about that is for us, those routines are highly specified. So this manual right here and the corresponding manual here that's roughly this thick is the role of the production team leader. And so inside of that role of the production team leader is all of their duties to lead and develop their team as a production team leader, to include if you're in assembly, you'll have an assembly board that you'll manage to. It made it a lot easier to translate the Toyota's leadership management system to other countries and other cultures by visualizing it. So you put the role of the production group leader, same thing. This book right here is the role of the production group leader, what they do before the shift, what they do during the shift, what they do after the shift, what's done weekly, and then there's a management system that goes with this role that's called floor management development system, which is the group leader's production management system. And there's roughly 4 levels to that. There's a no color qualified version, and then there's a bronze, silver, gold, kind of platinum level of achievement of lifting up those boards. there's also a timeline differentiation on that management system. So the hoshan management system is long term, and it'll have an annual hoshan, a mid-year review, and the hoshan is looked at every month by the management team, all the way down to the group leader level, as to how are we doing against the business plan for this year and the long-term hoshan. Are we doing the things necessary to move forward toward our aspirational goal? So there's the hoshan, and then from hoshan it turns into what we call daily management. And so daily management is where today we're going, it's more of a problem solving and achieve the schedule type operational visibility. It's like looking out your front windshield and seeing how well we're doing against today's requirements. And that's the nature of just in time, is to produce what's needed when it's needed and the amounts needed, right? So it moves from hoshan to daily management. And so the organization and the management system, what we would call, we don't really call it leader standard work, but our management roles and routines really flow around whether we're doing hoshan or whether we're doing daily management. And so
Sam, just a thought. How does this standard work manual, or you don't call it standard work manual, it is role definition, and how does it differ from job instruction?
It's quite different because it is a routine. For example, and I'm going to share my screen with you real quick, and maybe this will explain it a little bit. So when you're looking at, and I may flop through a couple of things here, process results, and again, this is in the daily management realm, not the hoshan management realm, even though there's a connection to it. The executive management, senior management, and operations management really focus on, sub KPIs in the areas of safety, quality, lead time, productivity, costs, and people development. But as you cross that line, you get down into process, activity, and actions. That's where you start to get into the department or area manager role or responsibility on influencing daily management. So we're moving from that a little bit longer term on the executive level to daily management as we get into operations management, area management, process manager, and process member, or what we would call a team member. And so it isn't job instruction. Job instruction is how to do a particular task, okay? And that is part of training. When you're on the line, you know the job. You've already been trained, but there may be optional differences that you'll need to accommodate for because of the nature of one-piece flow or in sequence by demand on the production line. Certain models are going to have more options than others, but you're really down to managing every product, every pitch, every shift, every day at this point when we talk about daily management. And so when you get the operations manager and down the line, you're moving into managing process activity and all the things necessary to do that. So we have different roles. The managers, assistant managers, they really need to be able to quickly see how the group's performing. They're coaching their team leaders, their business leaders. They're making sure that we're moving toward the hoshan, and that TPS is also supporting the hoshan, and they support their group leaders, and they strengthen. They really go evangelize the vision. They live it, they breathe it. They go influence results through their leadership, good leadership behaviors, by making sure the group is committed to the goals. But our group leaders and supervisors focus on managing the efforts and problem-solving activities around the day and building up the capability of their team leaders and their team members through problem-solving and improvement activities, and through making sure they're highly capable.
Just a question. Just can we go back to the earlier slide? Yeah.
Yeah.
So the group leaders and supervisors, they're also responsible, their roles for improving the standard work for operators.
Yeah, the group leader and the production team leaders. Now, group leaders, supervisors are one and the same. It's just a terminology. So sometimes in more traditional organizations, they may have supervisors. What is different between a group leader and supervisor is the ratio and the structure or the architecture of team leaders reporting to group leaders, and you may have a group of 40 to 50 team members. So between 25 and 40 team members to a group. So the role of developing standards actually technically starts in design and then flows through to manufacturing engineering. So standards are developed, they start their development as you get into manufacturing engineering and designing for manufacturability. Once that is then turned over to the production floor, it is the role of the production team leader and their team to actually develop and improve or Kaizen the standards. So it is the role of a production team leader to write the standardized work and the job instruction and to train people to the standardized work using the job instruction method, what we call Toyota job instruction. So, which is a version of TWI job instruction. So it is the role of the team leader to actually to create standards or to continue to improve the standards and stabilize the standard. It is the role of the group leader to overall improve performance trends in safety, quality, productivity, cost reduction, and cost of goods sold reduction, and people engagement and capabilities development. So they use a process of quality circle activities at the team level and problem solving to develop their team leaders. So you get more into A3 problem solving to develop the capability of your production team leaders, but you're using the quality circle activity to really improve the overall performance and capability of your team members in problem solving and Kaizen. Even though we might use the term quality circle activity, as you know from your TQM days, depending on the theme, if we're making an improvement on a current standard, that's a Kaizen circle activity, right? But it still uses the structure of the quality circle activity. The here team is improving how they do their team's work. If there's a safety issue, well, then the theme may be a safety circle activity, which usually happens around January. So the idea is that the group leader's looking at trends, and what he or she is doing is communicating and looking at performance trends, and then through the team and the team leaders, getting them to focus on the things that matter most to improve performance and problem solve. Team leaders are problem solving. They're problem solving their teams, problem solving their coaching, their team members, and they're responsible for building the capability of their team members. I will tell you something that's a little known secret sauce inside of Toyota is that not only do you have on-the-job development as part of your team member development to improve capabilities toward the hozan goal, but the team member also has accountability for their performance improvement. So there's a process called skills certification or team member certification, and team members, once certified, must maintain their certification by ensuring that they do their work inside of the standardized work cycle time and do not flow out problems to another workstation. Otherwise, they can lose their certification status. So one of the things that is very important at Toyota is that there is an accountability where the team member has to take their accountability for their own capability sustainment, as well as improving their own performance. And we don't talk about that a lot in the lean world, but yeah, if the team leader is going to train and build the capabilities of a team member, then, and that's part of, quote, their leader standard work, then the team member themselves has to have a level of ownership to that. And you do not hear much about, team member ownership about building and maintaining their capability inside of their duties. But it is part of the Toyota precepts to be true to their duties and perform their duties. So does that help understand that as you start to manage capabilities and influence and lead others, each leader's board that they lead by and the things they need to visualize and monitor is based on the things that they have to do to influence their performance. And each board is going to be different. Instead of everybody having a safety, quality, delivery, cost, productivity board, that those things may be there, but they may be different. They may be very specific to something that influences safety, something that influences quality, and they may only monitor 2 or 3 things that they think that are sub KPIs that will influence what they need to influence. From a team member's capability, I want to know who's capable of flexing to other jobs, who's maintaining their certification, who's not. Well, that's group leader, team leader level stuff. So also, when we kind of covered in the team leader role, that they have so the group leader's role has a management board called FMDS, Floor Management Development System. So it's very specific. The team leader, if they're in assembly, they have something called assembly board, assembly point management. If they're a little bit more upstream and they're dealing with machines and tooling and machine care, then they have what we call 3-pillar management, and they have a board for each one of those. They have a board for standardized work management. They have a board for machine care management, which also could be Kamishibai board, or eye care boards, where they show each team member has a responsibility for maintaining their equipment, and they're doing their equipment according to a Kamishibai that shows them a map on one side of where they need to start their daily maintenance activities, where they need to end it, and on the back side it tells them the major steps, key points, reasons why, kind of job breakdown type style. And then they also have something called tool point management, which means any kind of tooling that is used in the process must be highly maintained. And if you're not using it and you put it away, it needs to be put away in a shape that it's clean and ready for use the next time you need it, so that you do not lose time, stopping and going to get geometries back on, drill bits or tool holder units or anything like that. So team leaders manage assembly point management and machine care management, standardized work management, and tool point management. And they have boards that reflect that, as well as their hour by hours or their pitch boards. And of course, we talked about the team members, maintaining their certification process. So if you had to take a look at it at a little bit higher level here, and Art Smalley and I kind of created this together, you got this group leader over on the far right-hand side. They're looking at their particular group's area performance results, and they're looking at safety trends, quality trends, productivity trends, downtime trends, and what their engagement is in team member activities around quality circle activities. And they're kind of synthesizing up what we call their top 5 issues. And they're going to work through their team leaders and their team members through quality circle activities or Kaizen circle activities to improve those overall trends. So, of course, their board is going to be very visual to trends and communication, important communication things. Whereas the team leaders, they're managing standardized work process. So they're creating standards. So bottom left-hand side there, next to your team leader, they're creating standards. They're training people to the standards. So let's say, for example, if we're doing a takt time change, Well, that means we're going to be changing processes. We're going to re-level, the work to the Yamazumi chart. Then that means now we have to make sure that any changes in the process that change how the work is done, we got to make sure we have a takt time change training plan to make sure every team member learns their new training routine, their new job routine. So we have to train them to that new job using the new training plan to the new standards. Then we have to test, audit, team leaders audit. They do work observation audits to make sure people are following standardized work. They're also looking for any additional burden that needs to be Kaizened out or problem solved out, anywhere where someone is struggling with the standardized work. And they're always looking to see, is the standardized work stable over a period of time? If the standardized work's stable, that's where you'll want to Kaizen the new standard, right? And they're doing their 5S audits and stuff like that because it has an influence on standardized work. And they have a top 5 issues as well. And so they're working through their team to problem solve those top 5 workplace issues. They also have to do machine care. They're developing standards for machine care. They're making sure their team members have Kamishibai charts to do their eye care charts to do their daily maintenance activities. And then they're working on their top 5 process results. And then tool point management, they have a board for that. They're setting up tool standards, the training plan, make sure all their team members understand the geometries required to actually create quality at the source. And then they audit, the tool care, make sure they work on the top issues. And then the team member at the bottom is responsible for maintaining their certification status, continuing to improve their training status, and make sure that they that they do their work inside of their standardized work cycle time. And then also make sure they don't go over cycle, that if they have a problem that they stop, they pull the end on so that there's not a flow out of that problem to the next workstation. So you can see that what each leader is actually responsible for is different. And the thing is, because team members are maintaining their own training status and performance, then that frees up a team leader to look at other things. Their standardized work, machine care, and tool point management, assembly point management. That includes their torques and everything else they need to do their work. And if team leaders are focusing as kind of a third base coach on these things, then that frees up the group leader to be more of a production manager, but based on a team organization. So they are able to focus on productivity trends around what we call the 5 missions: safety, quality, productivity, cost, and people development. And they're looking at trends, and then their idea is to develop their team members and team leaders by giving them problems to solve. So when you look at that, this is a whole lot level. Team leaders have safety, quality, and delivery too, but they're doing it through, three pillar management. There's no specific, their hour by hour boards is their productivity. What their quality losses, scrap tracking, and stuff like that is their quality measurements. Whether they have a flow out or how many andons get pulled, but it's a lot different. It's what does this leader need to see and visualize in order to perform ideal daily management? And so it really kind of looks more like this. Group leaders and leaders both manage and influence. They have to manage the process. They have to influence the people. And so they communicate through a PDCA cycle, and then they observe, verify, and adjust. And they ensure the basics of TPS are working. They ensure operational imperatives are in place and everybody understands the operational imperatives. They secure the conditions for ideal production. They make sure, this is the management piece, they make sure everything that's there to man machine material methods is in place before production starts, and secure those ideal conditions for daily management. Then they manage the 4Ms, 5Ms, and any change points. And then they manage standardized work. And when standardized work fails, then you have a problem. And that's when we have to have abnormality control. So that is daily management. So depending on what you're looking at, what you need to see, you visualize that. We do that through the bingo boards. We do that through line boards. We do that through andon calls. We do that through the OBEA so we can see problems. So we do that through a multitude, what we call proper problem awareness. And then we do the routines for each leader. What would be leader standard work depends on what they do prior to production to secure the ideal conditions for daily management, and then maintain ideal daily management throughout the operation. And then what do you do when a problem occurs? And so this is what we would call leader standard work, and it's all different based on your role. So inside of each one of those, from the manager down to the process, the team member, you're looking at different things. What you visualize on your boards or any other kind of environmental visual management, whether that's andon boards or Kanban retrieval board lights or anything else, it all depends on what your responsibilities are. So there's not this cookie cutter approach of safety, quality, delivery, cost, productivity at every level. It looks different at every level. And these manuals that we teach and train our team leaders with, which we teach at the Lean Leadership Academy, it really breaks down your day from before the shift. When you get your people together to do your morning meeting, you do what we call a change point meeting, and you tell them, here are the changes for the day that you need to be aware of. And then maintaining, your role at auditing standardized work, auditing tooling, auditing machine care, and responding to problems. That's your routine, and then the group leaders looking at the trends based on, what the team leader and team members doing, whereas the manager's focusing on good production plans and potion management and strategic activities and building capability. Assistant managers really focusing on TPS. So if you look at all these different responsibilities, now you start to understand why the boards look different. And this is another view of that. Again, this is what we call an eye chart, but throughout the production, from the operator all the way up to the manager level, standardized work or setting the conditions for production or abnormality management or control is pretty detailed. It's different at every level. We're all doing different things, but because we're all doing different things, it frees up other people to focus on other areas. And so just to give you an idea, this is how different that is. So the boards are really a visualization of these responsibilities and routines. And there are other things that, group leaders do and team leaders do, such as a routine where they go by and talk to their team members. It's called a how's your process check, where we go talk to our team members about things that, we might want to have a one-on-one conversation with. We go challenge them to do daily operator maintenance, autonomous maintenance activities, or we may challenge them to find a better way or to work with us on improving the standard. The idea is that, the nature of this work is very Gemba centric, as you can tell. So there's no way, even no matter where you're at in the organization from a leadership management perspective, you can get away from not being out in the operation and influencing performance, from the Gemba operation. So it's pretty detailed, isn't it? So the primary board here, this is a good idea. This is kind of what we call the change point management board. It's part of FMDS. So if you're a group leader, this is your board. And it's more of a communications board. So, top right-hand corner there, you got your line position because Toyota practices work rotation, people go on vacation, people call out sick. what that does is it visualizes where people need to go on the line, where they're going to start with. And throughout the day, when you come back from breaks and so forth, you'll check this manning board, that top right-hand corner of the FMDS board, and see where your next position is. You can see who's out on vacation, who's in training, and so it visualizes who's in training, who's out, who may be shared with another process center somewhere else. So if we got someone where let's say we need more help in another department, we'll send them out. We'll note where that person goes to. And then the top left-hand side of the board is, letting people know who to go to for help, what's going on in the company newsletter, what kind of changes what's important for us today. And then we'll talk about on a daily basis, safety, quality, productivity, morale, and change points. So for the most part, safety is covered on Monday. Quality issues, unless it's something that happened in the last 24 hours, are covered on Tuesday. Productivity is covered on Wednesday. And people development is covered on Thursdays, and Fridays, we'll cover Kaizen Circle activities. Sometimes some of the plants actually will cover Kaizen Circle activities or Quality Circle activities on Thursday, because they actually do quality circles at the beginning of the shift on Wednesday, say at Toyota Material Handling. There's also your evacuation plan, problem-solving tracking down toward the bottom, that far hand right, those 4 panels there on the bottom right, those are your change points. Any changes that are going to be made in the future have to be listed here. And before you can put those changes in, you have to gain consensus for people on the other shifts, upstream, downstream of the process. So you kind of have a point of where you're managing your change points. So again, this is the supervisor's board. That thing opens up and it becomes more of a problem-solving board inside. So, and it's a place where the quality circle activities can track their 8-step problem-solving process. Whereas here, at the team leader level, we're talking about talent. Where are we starting people? Two-way communication. What changes on we call it 4 M's. What manning changes are taking place? Who's in, who's out, who's on rotation? Machine, any changes that are happening to the equipment, any changes that were made the last shift that we need to be aware of? Are we going to change anything from a layout perspective, process reduction, tack time change, materials, any changes into materials that we've been working with? So we know ahead of time we're using a new material or we're testing a new material. Methods, any changes to standardized work, and then making sure we train people to the new changes. So planned or unplanned changes, what's changing? Why are we changing it? When will the change start? When will the change end? What is the effect? And consensus building. So the other thing is that another routine is to go by and give your people an opportunity to tell you that there are things that they would like for you to work with them on. And that is, what we call Kaizen, or how's your process check. And the group leaders and team leaders go by and talk to each team member. After a while, you could just leave a sheet up and people can fill it out at the beginning of the process. And once it's filled out, the group leader will actually go to that team member and talk to them about whatever problem that they want to talk about, whether they want to improve something on their process, they're struggling with something, or if they want to talk about something else. So a lot of times this is where the point Kaizens come from, team member generated point Kaizens. So, I should kind of share that with you just so you could get a sense of what the boards look like and how they're different. At the team leader level, here's where, if you've got assembly, you've got your assembly board and what it tracks. It's similar to the group leader. You're still going to have emergency plans, but you'll also have things like what are the torque settings for the hand tools for today for the assembly line. If you're an engine assembly, there's something called FIG. You want to make sure it's heated to the proper level. So all of the managing the process elements that would be part of an assembly line would be listed here so that you know where to go to for the setup instructions. So this is more setup. And then it also takes into account where your standardized work is, where people need to be on their lines and so forth. What are the quality calibration checks? How often should they be checked? And your work observations for your team leaders. Here is what we would call the standardized work board. And that also tells us what you see down in the bottom left-hand side, you know, what the Yamazumi chart looks like, if there's been a change to that. What is your safety 1 point lesson focus? What's your maintenance 1 point lesson focus? And then there is the standards over here for bottom right-hand side of the board on change point management for standardized work. You know, this is team member, leader, group leaders' responsibilities. Then we get to machine care, and you see our little Kamishibai theater in the bottom right-hand side. Those Kamishibai cards get handed out to the team members to perform throughout the day, but it also shows us all of our standards are on this board for our machine care processes. And then this is an eye care board. So that's the back side of this board. And these are the team member by team member, what are their maintainability routines throughout the day. So, you know, that's hydraulic leaks, fluid checks, electrical item checks, critical surface checks, foreign debris checks, preventative maintenance activities done by the team member, and then any kind of maintenance driven training on 1 point lessons for doing these things well. Very visualized, as you can see that. But you notice there's no specific safety, quality, delivery, productivity, you know, flow down here. It's in there, but it's not specific because you're controlling quality by the activities. And then tool point management, how do you maintain, you know, the cutting surfaces and the ability of the tool holding units, because these parts these elements are things that wear. You need to maintain the critical dimensions and datum points in order, because this is where the machine interfaces with the material to create quality product. So maintaining tooling is the responsibility of team members and team leaders at the production level. And at a certain point, you have to send it back to tooling regrind to be able to recapture those geometries necessary to create a quality part. So I know that was like drinking water from a fire hydrant. My point is, what people think is leader standard work in Toyota is really different because it's really based on what are their job responsibilities and what is the routine in accomplishing that. So let's say 80% of it is standardized, where we're doing a routine and we're supporting our team and doing different audits and so forth throughout the day. The other part of that is responding to problems, you know, when the andon cord is pulled and making sure we don't have a flow out of problem, or taking a part offline and doing the investigation and doing the autopsy on to find out how a problem occurred, or walking the line to make sure we've cleared the line of the problem before we start it back up. Yeah, safety, quality, delivery, and productivity are there, but the key here is that it is the roles, the responsibilities, and routines that actually execute that. And at a certain point at the group level and above, that's where we're looking at performance trends, and we're using problem solving and Kaizen activities to improve those trends. And those are trends that and sub KPIs and targets that are set by the team themselves. Targets are set by the next level up leadership. The how we're going to achieve the targets and the leading indicators are set by the team. So a little bit different than the lean world kind of describes it, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, because this, which I really like, first of all, I like being a Gemba guy. I like to see all the boards and being absolutely visual. And what really caught me, my attention is the importance of communication, for example, and convincing rather than convincing is getting a consensus of what probably, I mean, I'm just going by what you're saying, which is that you have understood and there is a buy-in, and consensus doesn't mean that everybody agrees to it, but the key players would agree to it. There would be a little bit of fluctuation to change a little, but then probably there will be a peer pressures to do whatever it is. But there is a consensus, there is a buy-in. And what I like is you're calling it a standard work. It sounds more as a management student and getting out of lean, is there's roles, there's responsibilities and routines. The three
Yeah,
R's that
roles,
it's.
responsibilities, routines, absolutely.
This is what we were taught probably decades ago. This is what, but then there's roles, efficacies. People have forgotten about it, but there used to be role efficacy also. The other thing that I liked of what you said, which was not in my, there are many things which was not in my domain of knowledge, but seeing all these things refreshes me, was where was I coming from? Is the importance of developing. The other thing which I liked was is, I mean, you're not stagnating. It is imperative that you develop yourself and you get
Right.
certified. And if there is an aberration or a breach, the certificate vanishes. It expires if there's a breach. And then you may have to redo it and what have you to renew. It's like drunken driving, probably. And then
Right,
you,
right. Yeah, I
you
guess
have to
so.
get your license back after your therapy session or whatever you want to. So that's something that I really liked and really enjoyed. So the myth is actually that there is uh, some sort of activities, but they're not standardized activities the way I understand it. There are defined roles, responsibilities, and routines.
Right.
And you have to clarify this, that is this these roles, responsibility, etc., changes from position to position as the gentleman moves through a succession planning and etc.
Yeah, so there are, well, we say there are role-based competencies, which is your roles, responsibilities, routines. But then there are core competencies like the problem-solving routine at Toyota is known as Toyota Business Practice or hozan. Those are the same as you go up. But as you move from the team leader to the group leader level, then you go through training for group leaders, which is about 6 weeks of training, and the problem solving training, can be 8 weeks, by section. But yeah, you learn different things. You have to now learn your role as a group leader and its roles, responsibilities, and routines. It's complementary, but it's not the same, because you'll now have team leaders that are doing what you used to do. Then now you have to learn your role, which is different. So as you move up, your responsibilities change. You have new role, new responsibilities, new routines, and you have to be trained to those new roles, responsibilities, routines. The core competencies continue to be the
Yeah.
same. All that changes is the scope and complexity of the application. So Kaizen still the same, problem solving still the same. Now your problems are bigger, more complex, right? So
Yeah, I'll just take a short answer from you because I'm not going to leave you at this episode. I'm going to catch you again for another episode. Is this, you did give me a short answer. Toyota has career planning for each individual. Do they have succession planning?
yes, absolutely. So the idea for Toyota is that they promote from within in as much as possible. You will not find a president of Toyota that didn't grow up, from the most part, from the shop floor at some point or level. So for example, I talked about Will James earlier. Will James came in as a facilities group leader. So he wasn't a production group leader. He came in as a facility maintenance because he had an engineering background. Group leader, he led a facilities maintenance team, but then little by little was moved over into the production leadership roles and ended up in final assembly and then moving up through the system, both at Kentucky and Indiana, and then coming back to lead. So their succession planning moves you up through the organization from team leader to group leader. For example, Ernie Richardson came in as a production team leader, but he would have had to go to the floor and learn to be a team member first and learn all the jobs of a team member, because a team leader can actually go online when necessary. So team leaders at Toyota are not online team leaders, they're offline team leaders, but they may have to go online depending on the situation. So you have to know the job. So Ernie went up to be a general manager and then a general manager over in human resources. So he came up through the ranks, and that's the ideal situation at Toyota is developing a succession pipeline of leaders that move up to lead the organization with a depth of understanding of the organization and the Gemba, right? So we tend to be better Gemba leaders too that way too. If we come up from the shop floor, we're more comfortable on the shop floor.
Yeah, what I liked is the total thing, and it's. I loved this exchange of thoughts, and there were a lot of curiosities. There are still left, but then I'm not going to leave you that fast. We'll catch you later. So the topic that we were talking about, the myth of leader standard work.
Yeah, if you ask most people what's leader standard work, oh, we go get an audit sheet and we'll go out on the floor and we do these little audits. And in truth, at Toyota, that would be a myth, because every role of every leader should be going out where they're needed most to influence. So if you're president, your role is to go out, change policy, be an evangelist for the vision, both your vision and the organization's vision, and go out and influence and lead people to be part of that change for the future and change for the better. As you get closer to the work, your leader standard work is based on a visualized version of your roles, responsibilities, and routines. And we call it leading by the boards. You follow what you're supposed to be doing on your boards prior to production, during production, and after production. You will accomplish what needs to get accomplished, and you use the framework of the system in TPS, right? So the idea is that it's not a cookie cutter approach. There are audits being done, but they're audits by people who really know the work. Team leaders really know the work. They develop the standardized work, so they audit standardized work. Group leaders look at problems and trends, and then they make sure that their teams are working on those problems and trends and kaizening performance. The production managers are focusing on TPS and hozan. So it's different, and you visualize those boards to help you do your job better. There's safety, quality, what we call 5 mission management on each one of them, but it'll look different at every level. And going out and doing 5S audits is probably not the role of a production president. So probably not the best use of their time. 5S kind of stays at the team leader level. So it's baseball, right? Like Mr. Ono said.
So thank you, Sam. And you know what, something that you didn't tell me, which I realized, this is the reason why they call you Mr. Obey.
Yeah.
And thank you very much for sparing this time, and catch up with you. And you're going to be back with me for a lot of other curiosities. And we Gamba guys we know how to dirty our hands and keep our minds clean.
Yeah.
Take care, sir. Thank you very much.
Take care. Appreciate
care.
it. Thanks for having me on.
I'll
It's been
just
fun.
stop recording and